Far away in the endless galaxy, a signal of fear and desperation went out. It was not just a simple message, it was a cry for help. A small alien colony, peaceful and weak, was under attack by a ruthless empire. The invaders came with fire and steel, ships covering the skies, weapons burning the ground. The colony screamed into the void, begging anyone, anywhere, to save them for days. Their signal traveled, crossing stars and worlds, reaching many great empires, but one by one. Those empires ignored the call. Some said, "It is not our war." Some said, "The risk is too high." Others even laughed. Why waste resources on a lost cause? So the colony's hope began to fade. Their voices became weaker, their light almost gone. But then, the signal reached a new world, a small blue planet called Earth. Humans were young compared to the ancient powers of the galaxy. They had only just stepped among the stars, their fleets small, their colonies few. To the rest of the galaxy, humanity was nothing, untested, unimportant. But when humans heard the call, they did not turn away. They did not weigh profit. They did not fear risk. Instead, they asked only one question: who dares to harm the helpless? On Earth, leaders gathered. Generals studied the message. Scientists decoded every detail. Some argued, "We are not ready. We cannot win." But others said, "If we wait, if we hide, then humanity will always be nothing." And deep in the hearts of ordinary people, soldiers, engineers, and even farmers, there was only one answer. Humanity had always fought for survival, always stood together when pushed. Now, they would fight not only for themselves, but for strangers who had no one else. The galaxy expected silence, but instead, humanity spoke. Their message was short, clear, and filled with fire. To those who call for aid, humanity will come. Across shipyards and bases, the call to arms rang out. Pilots checked their fighters. Crews loaded weapons. Ships were fueled. Families cried but stood proud, knowing their sons and daughters were leaving for war. No one knew if they would return, but all knew why they must go. This was not just a rescue. This was a statement. Humanity would not allow tyranny to grow unchecked. Humanity would not stand by while the weak were crushed. And if the galaxy thought Earth was small, they were about to see something new. The first fleet of Earth rose into the sky, leaving behind their homeworld, steel and fire cutting through. The darkness of space. Inside the ships, men and women waited, silent but ready. Some were afraid, but their fear was turned into anger. Some whispered prayers, others sharpened knives. Pilots gripped their controls. The hum of engines became a promise that when humanity arrived, the enemy would know their mistake. Meanwhile, the alien colony was breaking. Families hid. In basements, streets burned, defenders fell one by one. They watched the sky with hopeless eyes, believing no one would come. The Empire laughed at their suffering, proud of their power, sure of their victory. But then, on the edge of their sensors, something appeared, small signals, faint at first, then stronger, growing. Multiplying ships, fast and hard, cutting through the void, closing in with purpose. The enemy commanders leaned forward, curious, confused. Who would be foolish enough to face us? They asked when the scanners revealed the truth. Disbelief spread across the bridge. Humans. It was the humans. The youngest race, the weakest species, had come to fight to the Empire. It was laughable. But to the desperate colony, it was a miracle. In the colony's last hour, hope was reborn. Children pointed at the sky. Elders cried. Soldiers shouted. In disbelief, the humans had answered, and they were not slowing down for the first time. The enemy felt doubt for the first time. The galaxy would witness something no one had expected. Not just mercy, not just aid, but fury. Because when humanity chooses to fight, they do not come quietly. They come with fire, with steel, with rage, and once they are awakened, nothing in the galaxy can stand in their way. The call for aid had gone out, and humanity had answered. Not with words, but with fury. On Earth, the signal was no longer just noise in the void. It was now a question, heavy and dangerous. Would humanity risk everything for a world they had never seen, a people they had never met? The great powers of Earth gathered. Leaders sat in silent rooms. Generals brought maps and data. Scientists filled screens with enemy strength. The facts were brutal. The enemy empire was vast. Its fleets were countless, their technology centuries ahead, and humanity only a beginner in the stars. Stood on the edge of an impossible choice. Some leaders shook their heads, their voices calm but afraid. This is not our fight. If we go, we will be crushed. Earth will burn. They warned. Others agreed, whispering of diplomacy, of waiting, of hiding. But in that same room, another voice rose, firm and clear. If we ignore this call, then we are already defeated. We will be known as cowards, and when our time comes, no one will come for us. The debate raged for hours. Fire against fear, hope against caution. Some argued for safety, some for action, but slowly a strange thing began to happen. Not just politicians, not just generals, but ordinary humans started to speak. Soldiers from distant bases sent messages. Send us. We are ready. Engineers in factories wrote letters. We can build faster. We can arm the ships. Even farmers from quiet villages said, we will give what we have. Feed your armies, feed your fleets. Their cry spread across Earth like a storm. Humanity had heard the call, and their answer was not silence. It was unity. In the streets, people gathered. Screens lit up with news of the colony's suffering. Children asked parents why no one helped, and parents had no answer. Veterans clenched their fists, remembering wars long past. The decision that leaders feared was already made in the hearts of the people. And the galaxy had underestimated the most dangerous thing about humanity. When humans believe in a cause, they will fight for it together. At last, the Council of Earth rose from their tables. Their voices tired but steady. The final decision came like thunder. Humanity will answer the call across the planet. The order spread, bases lit up. Shipyards roared. Factories worked day and night. Fighters were fueled. Cruisers armed. Carriers loaded with supplies. Young recruits lined up in thousands. Many with no experience, all with fire in their eyes. There was fear, yes, but it was buried under something stronger. Rage. Rage that the galaxy had accepted cruelty as normal. Rage that the weak could be crushed without consequence. Rage that no one else dared to stand. If the galaxy would not act, humanity would, in secret rooms. Strategists studied the enemy. They knew humanity could not match the Empire ship for ship. Not yet. So they would fight differently, with speed, with surprise, with fury. Old human history became lessons once again. Guerrilla tactics, ambushes, coordinated strikes, battles won not by numbers, but by courage and creativity. The galaxy might have advanced weapons, but humans had something older and sharper. The will to fight against impossible odds, and so the first fleet was chosen. Men and women from every nation, every background, united not by birthplace, but by belief. They boarded ships with heavy hearts and burning determination. Families held them tight, tears falling but spirits unbroken. Parents told their children, remember this. Remember that we did not hide. Some whispered that these humans would never return. But still they went, because they knew some sacrifices must be made so others can live. News spread beyond Earth, reaching outposts and colonies. Other alien races listened with disbelief. The humans, the youngest species, they are going to war. They said, to many, it was foolishness, a death wish. But to those who were oppressed, Those who lived under empires of fear, it was something. Else it was hope. For the first time in centuries, a race had risen not for conquest, not for gain, but for justice. The enemy empire, arrogant and proud, laughed when they heard humans. The children of the stars think they can fight us. Let them come. We will burn their worlds. They mocked. But in their laughter, there was a shadow, because, deep down, even tyrants know one truth: a desperate defender is dangerous. But a united humanity is unstoppable, and so the choice was made. Earth had decided, humanity had spoken. The fleets were ready. The call for aid had been answered, not with silence, not with excuses, but with fury. A young species was about to teach the galaxy a lesson older than the stars. That when humanity stands together, no empire can break them. In the dark silence of space, the alien colony trembled beneath the shadow of the Empire's fleet. Enemy warships circled above like predators, their weapons glowing, their voices filled with cruelty. The colony's defenses were weak. There. Ground soldiers exhausted, their skies filled with smoke. Hope had almost died. Families clung together, praying for a miracle that seemed impossible. Then, on the edge of the void, something shifted. At first, it was only a whisper, a faint signal. On the enemy's scanners, the commanders leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What is this? Another false alarm, they muttered. But the signal grew stronger, clearer, multiplying. Tiny sparks of light appeared in the distance, like stars moving where no stars should move. The colony's people saw it too, and for a moment they did not understand. They thought it was more enemy ships, another wave of doom. But then the shapes became clear. Hard steel cutting through the dark. It was not the Empire. It was someone else. It was the humans. The Empire's commanders laughed, their voices cruel. And amused humans, the children of Earth, the youngest race in the galaxy. They dared to come here. They called them weak, primitive, unprepared, but behind their laughter there was unease. A whisper they could not silence because no one else had come, and yet humanity had. No one else dared to fight, and yet humanity had. The first human fleet entered the system. Like a blade, fighters spread out like angry hornets. Cruisers took position. Carriers opened their hangars. Their ships were smaller than the Empire's, less polished, less advanced, but they moved with speed and purpose. Like predators ready to strike, the engines burned bright, the steel gleamed. And every human aboard carried a fury that no machine could measure. Inside the colony, voices rose in disbelief. They came, the humans came, the people whispered. Children pointed at the sky. Soldiers on the ground lifted their weapons higher. For the first time, hope did not feel like a dream. It felt real. The humans had answered the call on the bridge of the largest human carrier. Silence filled the room. The admiral, a woman with eyes sharp as steel, studied the enemy fleet. She knew the odds, she knew the risks, but she also knew the truth. Retreat was never an option, not for humanity. Her voice carried across every channel, calm but unshakable. We are here, we will fight, we will not back down. The Empire moved first, their ships spreading like a swarm, weapons locked, cannons charged, beams of fire lit the darkness. They thought they would crush the humans. In the first strike, they thought this would be a quick victory, a warning to the galaxy, but the humans did not scatter. They did not run. Instead, they advanced. The first human fighters darted forward, weaving through enemy fire. Their movements were sharp, unpredictable, chaotic to the Empire's eyes. Missiles launched, lasers fired, explosions ripped across the void. A single human squadron destroyed an enemy cruiser, vanishing before the larger ships could respond. The enemy commanders frowned, their laughter fading. This was no foolish attack. This was a strategy. On the colony below, the people watched the skies. Every explosion above was like thunder. Shaking the ground, they could not see every detail. But they felt it. The humans were fighting for them. Risking everything, tears filled the eyes of elders. Children shouted with joy for the first time. They believed they might survive, but the battle was far from over. The Empire's fleet pressed harder, their weapons scorching the void. Human. Ships took hits, some burning, some falling, but they did not stop. Every loss was met with greater fury. Every fallen comrade became fuel for rage. The humans fought not for glory, not for conquest, but for the promise they had made to those who call for aid. Humanity will come. Inside the Empire's flagship, anger replaced amusement. Their commander slammed his fist against the console. These humans fight like demons, destroy. Them now, yet no matter how many shots they fired, no matter how many traps they set, the humans adapted, twisting, turning, striking from angles no one had expected. Every maneuver, every sacrifice showed something the Empire could not understand. Humans did not fear death when the cause was just, and so the first clash became something greater, not just a battle of ships, but a battle of wills. The Empire with its pride and numbers. Humanity with its fury and unity. The void burned with fire. The colony shook with hope, and across the galaxy, hidden watchers began to whisper. The humans have arrived, and they are not what we thought the arrival of Earth's fleet was. More than ships, it was a message carved in fire. Humanity was no longer a quiet species on a distant world. They had entered the stage of the galaxy with blood and steel, and the Empire, once so certain of victory, now faced a truth that filled them with unease. They had awakened something new. Something dangerous. A species that would not bow. A species that would not break. Humanity had arrived, and they had come in fury. The void erupted with fire. Human ships clashed with the Empire's fleet in a storm of light and steel. The silence of space was broken by endless bursts of energy, beams slicing through darkness, missiles streaking across black skies, explosions, painting the stars with burning colors. This was no small skirmish. This was war. And the galaxy was watching. The Empire's ships were larger, their armor thick, their cannons built to shatter worlds. Against them, humanity's fleet looked small, fragile, almost weak, but appearances can lie. The humans did not fight like the Empire expected. They did not march in predictable lines. They did not rely on size or weight. They fought with fury, with speed, with chaos. Every ship moved like a predator, every squadron like a pack of wolves. The enemy fired at shadows. But the humans were already gone, striking from new angles. A single human destroyer darted forward, weaving through blasts of fire. The enemy laughed at its size, but their laughter died when the destroyer unleashed a swarm of missiles. The missiles struck hard, piercing shields, tearing holes in armor. The massive enemy cruiser shuddered and burned in the command deck of the human fleet. Cheers erupted, but they were short. For every enemy ship destroyed, more came forward, the Empire's strength was endless. On the colony below, every explosion shook the skies. The people huddled in ruins. Listening to the thunder of war above, they prayed silently, their eyes on the flashes in the night. They could not see details, but they felt it. Humanity was bleeding for them, fighting for them, holding the line where no one else would. Every child whispered the same word, humans, with awe and hope, inside human fighters. Pilots gritted their teeth, sweat dripping as alarms blared. Stay sharp. Don't let them box you in. One shouted overcomes. They dove between. Enemy fire pulled maneuvers that machines were never meant to handle. Some ships did not return, swallowed by fire. But their sacrifice was never wasted. Their deaths opened paths for others. This was humanity's way. One fell, another rose, fiercer than before. The Empire commanders grew frustrated, their faces twisting with anger. These humans, they fight like madmen. Crush them all. They demanded their ships, pressed harder, tightening their formation, their firepower doubling, and for a moment, it seemed like the humans could not hold. One carrier burned, another destroyer split apart. Bodies lost to the void. Fear touched the fleet, but it did not last. Because humans do not surrender, not when lives are on the line. The human admiral stood tall. Her voice firm. Push forward, strike at their core, show them what fury means. The fleet roared back to life, ships surging with renewed purpose. Squadrons cut deep into enemy lines, targeting engines, weapons, weak points others would ignore. Every strike was sharp, every maneuver reckless but effective. The Empire was used to orderly wars. But this was not order. This was chaos made. Into art, on the ground, defenders raised their heads as the skies thundered. Some alien soldiers picked up their weapons again. Inspired by the humans, they fight for us. We will not hide, they shouted. The spirit of resistance spread like fire. The colony, once broken, now burned with courage. The humans were not just saving them with ships, they were saving them with hope. But the enemy was not finished. From the heart of the Empire fleet, a massive ship emerged, larger than anything humanity had faced. Its hull bristled with weapons. Its shield glowed like a burning sun. It was the Empire's dreadnought, a weapon of fear, a symbol of dominance. The enemy commander sneered. End this farce, erase them. The dreadnought's cannons charged, light building into a storm of destruction. Human ships braced as beams cut through the void, tearing apart two cruisers instantly. The blast was like a sun exploding, shaking even the colony below. 4. The first time silence filled the human fleet. They faced a monster, and they knew it. But retreat never crossed their minds, not once. Instead, anger spread, sharp and hot. They had come this far, they would not fall now. The Admiral's voice cut through the fear. Listen to me. We will bring it down, no matter the cost. Her words were not a command. They were a promise. Pilots clenched their controls tighter. Crews rushed to load weapons faster. Soldiers prepared to die if needed. The first battle was no longer about survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity could not be broken. And as the dreadnought loomed, the humans surged forward once more. The void burned, ships fell, heroes rose, and the first battle of humanity in the stars carved itself into history. The outcome was still unknown. The danger greater than ever. But one thing was already clear to all who watched. The humans did not fight like the others. They did not flee. They did not bow. They fought with fury, with unity, with fire that refused to die. And the Empire, for the first time in centuries, felt fear. The first battle was only beginning, and humanity was just getting started. The battle raged on, fire and steel tearing the sky apart. Humanity fought with fury, striking fast, striking hard, carving paths through the enemy fleet. But as victories lit the void, the Empire prepared its hidden weapon, the dreadnought. A giant born of centuries of war moved into position, its presence casting a shadow across every star, on board the Empire's flagship. The commander's voice was calm but filled with cruel pride. These humans fight like animals, fierce but foolish. Now we will show them the true weight of the Empire. His hand waved, and the dreadnought obeyed. Its cannons charging with power enough to erase cities, the energy built like a second sun, glowing brighter, louder, until the very void trembled on. The human flagship, alarms screamed, screens flashed red. The Admiral's face tightened. She knew what was coming. All ships brace for impact. She ordered, and then the sky exploded. A beam of destruction shot forth, wide as mountains. Faster than thought, it tore through the void, cutting apart two human cruisers in a single breath. Their screams echoed across comms, silenced a heartbeat later as fire consumed them. The colony below shook as if struck by a god's hand. Walls cracked, towers fell. The people cried out in fear. The humans had been brave, but now they were bleeding badly. More blasts followed, each one ripping into the fleet. A destroyer split in half, its crew gone in an instant. A carrier staggered, flames bursting from its engines as escape pods scattered like sparks. The dreadnought advanced slowly, like a predator enjoying the hunt. Every shot was precise, merciless, unstoppable. On the bridge of the human flagship, silence filled the air for a moment. The admiral gripped the rail, her jaw tight, her eyes blazing. "We cannot match its power," an officer whispered, despair creeping into his voice. For the first time, fear began to spread through the fleet. Was this the end? Was this the moment humanity would be erased from the stars? But fear did not last long among humans. It never does. From across the comms, voices rose. A pilot with smoke in her cockpit whispered, "We're not done yet." A captain of a damaged frigate growled, "We can still fight. We must fight." Even as ships burned, even as losses grew, the humans refused to surrender. Their spirit was not measured by numbers, not by size, but by defiance. The admiral raised her head, her voice cutting through the despair. "Listen to me. We will not retreat. We will not break. If this monster wants to end us, then it must bleed with us." Her words spread through every channel. And across the fleet, the fear turned into fire. Pilots steadied their hands. Crews reloaded weapons. Even wounded soldiers dragged themselves back to stations. Humanity had faced impossible odds before. And always they had risen. The humans struck back. Desperate but clever, fighters swarmed the dreadnought, darting between its shields, unleashing missiles at weak spots. Frigates launched coordinated attacks, targeting engines, trying to slow its advance. Every move was costly. Dozens of ships lost, but every strike left a scar, small but real. The dreadnought shuddered under the fury, its shields flickering, its commanders frowning. For the first time, they felt something strange. Not victory, but resistance on the colony below. The people could see the great ship glowing above. Fear filled their hearts, but so did awe. The humans did not flee, even against such a beast. They stood and fought. Children whispered prayers. Elders held hands. Soldiers on the ground shouted into the skies, "Hold, humans, hold." The colony that had once been ready to die now burned with new courage. But the cost was heavy. Too many ships were gone, too many lives lost. The humans could not fight like this forever. Their fury alone could not stop the dreadnought. And yet, none of them spoke of retreat. None of them spoke of surrender. Because humanity's strength was never in the safety of victory. It was in the fire of resistance. When pushed to the edge, humans did not fall. They became something sharper, something deadlier. The Empire's commander sneered. Though unease touched his eyes, "They bleed, they burn, but they still come." What kind of monsters are these humans? His crew gave no answer because none was needed. They had seen it with their own eyes. The humans were dangerous not because of their ships, not because of their weapons, but because they refused to stop. The turning point of the battle had come. The dreadnought had unleashed its fury. The humans had taken the blow. They were wounded, bleeding, nearly broken. But still they fought. And as long as one human ship remained, as long as one human heart still burned, the battle was not over. In the depths of the void, amid fire and ruin, humanity's spirit roared louder than any cannon. They were outnumbered, outgunned, facing certain death. And yet, the enemy could not shake the truth that now haunted them. These humans, these children of Earth, would rather die fighting than live as slaves. The battle had turned. The galaxy was watching, and history was being written in fire and blood. The void was fire, the human fleet battered and bleeding, yet still alive. The dreadnought loomed like a dark god, its cannons glowing with deadly light. The Empire believed the battle was already won. But they had made a mistake. They had awakened something inside humanity that no empire should ever face. On the bridge of the human flagship, silence lingered after another explosion. A frigate had just been torn apart, its crew gone in an instant. But from the silence came a single voice, firm, unbroken. "Admiral, we are still here." The Admiral nodded slowly, her eyes burning. "Yes, we are still here. And as long as we are here, we fight." The humans had lost much, but loss was fuel, not weakness. Every destroyed ship, every fallen comrade, sharpened their rage into a blade. The pilots who remained became wolves, striking harder, fiercer. The soldiers and carriers armed themselves for boarding actions. Engineers on half-broken ships worked with bloody hands, refusing to let their vessels die. The humans turned pain into fury, and fury into strength. The Admiral raised her hand, her voice echoing across every channel. "Listen to me. Humanity has always been underestimated. We are small, we are young. But when we are pushed, we burn, we bleed, and then we strike back harder. Today, the galaxy will see who we are. Today, the Empire will learn to fear us." Her words ignited the fleet. A roar of voices came back through comms. Pilots shouting, captains growling, soldiers screaming their defiance. The fleet surged forward, not away from the dreadnought, but directly toward it. The Empire's commanders stared in disbelief. These humans are insane. They charge at death itself. But disbelief turned into panic as human fighters broke through their defensive lines. They flew too fast, too reckless, weaving through blasts, striking at engines and cannons. Every move seemed suicidal, but each one struck deep wounds into the Empire's giant. The dreadnought's shields flickered again, this time weaker, this time slower to recover. Then came the boarding teams, shuttles launched from burning carriers. Soldiers inside, gripping rifles, knives, even explosives strapped to their chests. They slammed into enemy hulls, cutting their way inside. Corridors filled with smoke and blood. Humans clashed with alien soldiers in brutal hand-to-hand combat. They fought like cornered beasts, striking with rage, refusing to fall even when wounded. For every human who fell, another rose behind them, angrier, louder, unstoppable. The dreadnought shuddered under the assault, alarms blaring across its decks. The Empire commander's voice cracked with anger. "Why won't they break? Why won't they die?" His officers gave no answer, their fear growing as human attacks grew bolder. Sharper, more terrifying, the humans were not just fighting. They were teaching the galaxy a truth it had forgotten. That nothing was more dangerous than a united humanity filled with rage. On the colony below, the skies glowed with fire. But the people no longer hid. They ran into the streets, shouting, crying. Pointing at the flashes above, "They fight for us. They bleed for us. They will not fall," they cried. Even broken defenders picked up weapons, refusing to let the humans stand alone. The spirit of resistance spread, born from the fury of humanity inside one human fighter. A pilot with blood on her face whispered to herself, "Shh, they think we are weak. Let them see our strength." She rammed her ship straight into the dreadnought's shield, sacrificing herself, tearing open a hole for others to strike. Her death was not in vain. Missiles poured through the breach, ripping into the monster's heart. Every sacrifice became a weapon. Every death became a warning. The admiral clenched her fists as reports flooded in. Loss is heavy, but the dreadnought. It's cracking, an officer said. She closed her eyes for a moment, honoring the fallen, then opened them with fire. Then we finish this, she said. Her voice was steady, but inside her heart burned with grief and fury for every life lost. Humanity would make the enemy pay. The dreadnought staggered, its once-proud shields torn apart. Its armor scarred and broken. Smoke poured from its engines, its weapons failing one by one. The Empire commander shouted for reinforcements. But there were none. The humans had torn through their fleet, shattered their confidence, broken their pride. Now even the Empire's soldiers whispered in fear. These humans, they are not like the others. They are monsters in flesh. The galaxy had expected humanity to fall. But instead, it was the Empire that bent under the storm. And the storm was not made of ships or weapons. It was made of rage, of sacrifice, of a will that refused to die. This was humanity's fury unleashed, and once unleashed, nothing could stand against it. The battle was not over, but the tide had turned. The dreadnought, the Empire's symbol of fear, now stood wounded and vulnerable. The humans, bloodied but unbroken, prepared for their final strike. The admiral's voice rang out once more, fierce as thunder. Today, the galaxy will learn. Humanity does not run. Humanity does not bow. Humanity answers with fury. And with that, the fleet surged forward again, ready to carve their name into history with fire. The Empire had wanted to break them, but instead had created something far worse, an enemy that would never forgive, never forget, and never stop. This was the true face of humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. The great dreadnought burned, its armor, once untouchable, split apart like broken stone. Its engines flickered, its mighty cannons fell silent. The Empire's monster was dying, and the galaxy, watching from shadows and hidden channels, saw something they would never forget. Humanity had faced the storm, and they had not only survived, they had struck back on the bridge of the human flagship. Silence filled the air as the admiral stood. Her hands gripped the console. Her eyes locked on the enemy giant. This was the moment, the final blow. Now, she commanded. Her voice sharp and steady. The fleet responded like thunder. Missiles, beams, and cannons roared, pouring everything into the dreadnoughts. Broken heart, the great ship shuddered, fire bursting from its core for one last second. The Empire commander's voice echoed in rage. These humans, they will doom us all. Then the dreadnought split apart. Swallowed by fire and silence, the battlefield grew still. Wreckage drifted across the void, glowing with the remains of fallen ships. The humans had lost many, too many, carriers destroyed. Frigates shattered, fighters reduced to sparks of memory. But they had won, against all odds, against all reason. They had won on the colony below. The people watched the skies clear of enemy fire. The black shadow of death was gone, replaced by the light of victory. Cheers erupted through broken streets, survivors hugging one another, crying with joy. Children shouted the word that now carried a new power. Humans, they cried, not in fear, but in awe. The weak had been saved, the forgotten had been remembered, and hope had returned. The human fleet held its silence for a moment, honoring the fallen inside every ship. Soldiers stood still, heads bowed, remembering those who had given everything. But even in their grief, pride burned, because their sacrifice had meaning. Their blood had written a story that would echo across the stars. The admiral spoke once more, her voice heavy but unbroken. Today we mourn, but today we also rise. Let the galaxy know, if you call for aid, humanity will answer, and if you strike the helpless, humanity will answer in fury. Her words spread across the channels, carried to every corner of the system. The survivors of the colony wept openly, their leaders falling to their knees in gratitude. For them, humanity was no longer just another race. Humanity had become legend. Far away, across the galaxy, news traveled like fire. Rulers in distant empires whispered nervously. The humans destroyed a dreadnought. Others shook their heads in disbelief. They were supposed to be weak, untested. How could this be? But among the oppressed, among the forgotten, the whispers were different. They came when no one else did. They fought for those who were not their own. They are not just humans. They are hope. The Empire, humiliated and broken, retreated into silence. They had underestimated humanity, and now they feared them. They had seen what happened when humans were provoked. When humans were pushed too far, they had learned that behind humanity's kindness was a fire that could consume empires. They had learned that to awaken human fury was to awaken death itself. Back on Earth, the news of victory spread. Families who had feared the worst cried with relief. Mothers and fathers hugged children tighter, knowing some would never return. Streets filled with both mourning and celebration. Humanity had paid a heavy price, but they had carved their name into the galaxy. No longer were they seen as young or weak. They were now known as something far more dangerous. The colony rebuilt slowly, but with pride. Every stone they laid, every tower they raised, carried a story, the story of the day humans came, the day strangers became saviors, and forever in their history. The colony wrote the same words. They called for aid, and humanity answered. The admiral stood once more at the viewport of her ship. She looked at the stars, knowing the battle was over. But the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was only beginning. The cost had been terrible, but the message was clear. Humanity was not to be ignored, not to be dismissed, not to be provoked. They were a storm wrapped in flesh, a fury born from fire and loss, and when they rose, no empire could stand against them. The galaxy had been changed forever. For centuries to come, children would whisper the tale. Rulers would plan with caution, and enemies would hesitate before daring to strike. Because they would all remember the day the call went out, and the day humanity answered, not with silence, not with excuses, but with fury.